Author's Vlog Supplemental 8.5. This week we talked about MRUs. I don't have a huge amount to add to that discussion because I read about those a few years ago. I've pretty much internalized them so that 99.9% of the time I actually do it in the right order. So I don't really consciously focus on it. That's one of the few things I actually get that right. I don't use that as often as I probably should. I'll worry about it more in editing. I don't really focus too much on that during the first draft. I focus on first drafts on making sure that the plot itself is solid, the scenes are correct for the most part, so I don't have to rewrite as much, and that my characters, I have the right characters doing the right things so that I can limit rewriting as much as possible. You're going to rewrite some, let's be honest. And if this is your very first book, you're going to rewrite so much. There's actually a short story or almost novella-length story that I have not finished yet because it is in the editing stage and there's so much to rewrite that I just completely got bogged down in it. I wrote the beginning fairly well and fairly detailed, but I didn't have a good enough plot structure, and I really just kind of rushed through the end, and like that whole second half of it needs to be rewritten, and I just rushed, and it is all crap. It is just all crap. This is a complete and full rewrite. You'll totally rewrite scenes and maybe even full chapters, take some out, put some in. That's totally normal. I just want to avoid having to do huge rewrites, which is why I'm so big into planning now, because if I plan it out, like I do everything else in life, I'm a kind of a planner anyway, but for some reason with writing, I had this idea that you don't plan out writing, that it just flows from you like a fountain. And it totally does not. It really doesn't. It's just too complex. I can do short stories or flash fiction, just bam, you know, if it's just 10 pages or something, I can totally just sit down and pants that. There's a little bit of editing and everything's great because it's not too big. But the second it gets bigger than that, I have to plan the crap out of it because I just can't hold that much detail in my head at one time. I don't know if it's partially being dyslexic or just being human, but it's too much. Can't do it. So I plan. I learned the hard way. Hopefully some of you don't have to. But whatever. So what I can say about sequels, because we did do a lot of discussion about how Dresden, he's not Dresden, how Jim Butcher does his sequels, I do that a little bit. So this is a couple of scenes into my novel. So sequel, here's the reaction, and then instead of having dilemma, I have what kind of reaction or what is driving the internal decision making that the character has. So she's kind of using reason here. This is when she first finds out her parents are missing. I focus on the father, but really it's just the parents. They're not estranged from their mother or anything weird like that. This is when they first realize the parents are missing, and she reacts with reason the first bit, and then something else happens after that, and then she reacts with the emotion. It's like it took that long for it to really sink in that something was happening, and that's when she reacts emotionally to it, and that's what drives her through that scene, or that sequel. But a lot of times, like this one over here, is reason and emotion. So that's kind of how I use Jim Butcher's sequel idea. So that's pretty much all I have to say about MRUs, or our last episode. I'm actually a little bit behind in writing this week. You probably know this already. I mean, it only makes perfect sense. We do our taping the week before we actually drop it because we have to do all the editing. So I'm technically a week ahead of everybody. Not when I'm doing the supplementals, but when we're doing the actual episodes, because I do the supplementals like now. Like it's Thursday, I'm going to drop this on Thursday, so it's real time. Sort of. You know what I mean. This week, we didn't do our taping until last night. But we were sick Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Like, the pets got fed, and we ate, and that was about all that happened for 3 days. So, I'm a little bit behind on things. But that's okay. Luckily, I had a bit of a buffer from the last week, so that helped out a lot. And I got about 1,000 words written last night, 889. And I went ahead and I didn't do this earlier, I just did it yesterday. I usually actually do this on a piece of paper, but I thought I'd keep it more official. Siobhan got me a YouTube book, so I decided this is for the video now. So there are like episode notes and crap in here, and this is my writing log. And it's a day by day. It's gonna end up over here, and then I've got 2 more pages for this is the first draft writing log. So yesterday was the 22nd, and the file I was working on had 200 2,000 some odd words. It ended with 3,000 some odd words for a total for that day of 889 words that I wrote yesterday, for a grand total of 9,149. That's the total number of words in this novel currently. So I don't keep my novel in a single text file. There are a couple of reasons to that. Number one, I tried that before and it's kind of unwieldy. Now I just keep them in single chapter units, and it makes it a lot easier because if I want to give it to my writers group to get feedback from them while I'm writing, then I can just send that single file to them, they make their comments, I open that single file, I edit it, and I close it and I'm done. It's kind of motivating as well because that kind of gives me closure and a way to say, okay, I've reached this goal, I've done this thing, something has been completed. Whereas when you open a text file that is your entire book, it can be really daunting, especially when you look at it and you're like, how much have I written? Oh, I've written like 2 pages and I know I need to write like 200 or 300 pages. It's kind of a mental game you play with yourself where it feels like you've accomplished something when you can say, oh, this one's done, and I put that away. Okay, this one's done, I can put that away. Whereas with a full novel length text file, you can't really do that. You just know there's just a never-ending amount of words that you need to add to that file. So that's another reason to do it, and it's just easier for me to keep track of what is in each chapter. It's easier to navigate. The bigger the text file gets, like the faster the scroll thing goes. So it's just easier for me to keep it in chapters, so that's what I do. I also don't use Scrivener or any of the other book applications or screenplay applications to plan my book out or to write it or keep track of all of the incidental information required, like character write-ups and plot outlines and how things go in threads and all of that. I totally do that. I think I've showed this before. I have this back here, and this is my current project. This is Catcalled. These two here, I got the big book here, and I've got this other book down here. There's a file folder, and there are a couple of little notebooks in there. I keep everything, except for the writing itself, mostly hard copy. I can find things faster. I know what they look like faster. I know roughly where they are. I can take out and just have out the parts that I need. Like if I'm just dealing with 2 characters, I can have my 2 character sheets and my plot outline, and that's all I have on my desk. Or if I need a bunch of other stuff, I've got books open everywhere, and then I gotta bring in the TV table trays and like add more tables. It gets really obnoxious. But I know where everything is, and it's much faster. I've tried using things like Scrivener, and it's a lot more confusing. I can't seem to visually remember where things are in the same way in a program, which is weird because I don't have any problems doing that in the other programs I use all the time. But for some reason with writing, it's so different to, say, using Photoshop or the photo editor or, you know, Mozilla, or even navigating Windows itself. I know where things are, like, oh, I need to go to control panel and add remove programs, or hardware, or hey, I need to release and renew my IP address. So I go here, oh, I need to ping something. Here I open this and I do that. Very easy on a computer for some unknown reason that I cannot do with a novel for some unknown reason. I just don't know what the hang-up is, but I have a mental hang-up there. A lot of people don't. If you want to do something with trying to organize and you like using digital organizations, there are lots of programs for it. I know Scrivener is particularly well loved. I don't do that. I just don't. Organization, it matters, so find out how you organize. I'm kind of rambling today, so I'm going to end that here. Email me with any questions. Email us with any questions. hey@getwriting.wang. And I will see you guys next week.